Thank you so much for coming today. I'll start off. Why am I smiling so much? If you'll advance it, please. I know the answer, but because I get to work with all of you on really interesting, challenging, fun issues. I'm all through the interview process, I just really loved everyone's energy. That stood out to me more than anything. Positive energy from all of you. Great answers to my questions. Great questions for me. I hope I had good answers for you. It just felt like a really good fit to me. And I was excited to tour around and see the different facilities you had and hear your perspectives on things and learn a little bit more about Erie. I really appreciate you helping me grow and learn about this great town. And when Farrell sent me an email that said, at least among the City Hall group, when she sent it around saying that I was the finalist, they had selected, cheers went up around City Hall. And as I told the City Hall group, that means there's really high expectations for me. I hope I can live up to those expectations, and certainly the feeling is mutual. I was totally psyched when they told me that I was the selected candidate. I've been looking at Erie for months, and the more I looked, the more excited I became about the possibility of becoming the city or the town administrator. So I love your energy. There's all kinds of interesting challenges, and I look forward to working with all of you to make a difference here. So next slide, please.
Sorry.
Come on in. The best seats are right there, so those are really comfy. Yeah. Just a little bit about me. For those of you who haven't seen my resume, I'm a Colorado native, although I've really only lived here the last 11 years. I was born in Alamosa, and about 2 months later we moved to Taos, New Mexico. So I grew up in New Mexico and a small town in northern Arizona, Williams, near Flagstaff. But since then I've lived, I think, in 10 different states and 18 different cities and towns. So I've been around a lot, mostly in the West, a little bit back east for graduate school. I couldn't make up my mind where I wanted to go to college, so I started in Oregon, and I went to CU for a year, and then I finally ended up at NAU in Flagstaff. That's where I graduated with a degree in industrial supervision. I went back to Taos after college and started my own construction company doing residential construction. Called the business Wood, Mud, and Sun because I enjoy doing carpentry work, and I did all the custom cabinets and finished carpentry, and we made adobe houses with my crew, and all of them were either passively or actively solar heated. So that's where the name comes from. Since then I went back to graduate school. I saved up enough money. Actually, could have made a good living as a building contractor, but I decided I was perhaps creating as many problems as I was solving by building houses spread out all over the Taos Valley. And I wanted to learn more about policy issues and how cities develop and various things. So I went back to graduate school back east, and even though I had a fair amount of money going into school, I came out heavily in debt because it wasn't cheap and needed a good job, and was able to manage to get a job in California with the Legislative Analyst's Office. That's in the state legislature, working for staff as the Joint Legislative Budget Committee. So that helped me get a good sense of financial issues and budgeting and various policy issues. But the state of California has, even at that point, I think it had 30 million people. The state organization had over over 100,000 employees, and it was just a big, unwieldy organization. And neither my wife at the time nor I really wanted to spend our whole lives in California. She wanted to go back to Ohio, where she was from. I said, okay, we'll do that. And so I ended up, after a kind of a tough job search, at this tiny little township in Pennsylvania, Ross Traver Township. It's about 20 miles south of Pittsburgh. And I had met a city manager before taking that job, and just fortuitously learned about what city managers do. And it seemed like a really fascinating place or opportunity and profession. And I have, ever since then, in working in local government management, I love this work. It's it really is wonderful to work with people like you and to make a difference on the local level, to build interesting projects and to innovate things like implementing curbside recycling programs that make it easier for people to do sustainable development, or helping communities develop in a way that creates neighborhoods that are really vibrant and downtown areas that have business opportunities for entrepreneurs to start their businesses and to grow their businesses, and to do operations in a way, whether it's plowing the snow off the streets in a way that's more efficient, or delivering water that's we all rely on. I'm thankful that those of you that work in the public works area and the utilities area, most people really don't think about when they turn the tap on how complicated it is to deliver clean water every single day, as much as you want whenever you turn on the tap. It's an afterthought. And the reason it's an afterthought is because you folks do your job so well. And make sure that it's clean and that we have a reliable source, regardless of whether Erie has 26,000 people or 65,000 people. We're going to figure out how to deliver enough water to make that happen. And that is a tremendously challenging, one of many tremendously challenging things that all of you do in your work. And I love working with you on all the various challenges that come up every day in cities. So it's been a little bit of a very short tenure in Ross Traver Township, because even though I felt like I was qualified for the job, they wanted me to do some things that I thought were unethical. And maybe it was a miscommunication, but ultimately I kind of said, no, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't sound like the right, the right, not just approach, but it doesn't sound legal to me. So I'm not going to do that. And so they fired me, and and 2 months later, I happened to be in the right place at the right time in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And a guy named Juan Vigil, who was the county manager in Bernalillo County, just happened to be looking for somebody. And he thought it was kind of nice that I had been fired for standing my ground on ethics things. And he was just a wonderful mentor and remains a lifelong friend. He was the county manager in Bernalillo County for about 10 years, and then he retired and became the retired. I'm going into more detail than you're interested. He's a wonderful person. He was a great mentor and remains a friend. He helped me. He kind of just threw all kinds of things at me. And I think at one point I had 8 or 9 different departments in a large county. It was a large metropolitan county, including Albuquerque. He just kept throwing stuff at me and helping me learn and letting me fail, and was a wonderful mentor. And I learned enough that I thought I knew what it would take to be a county administrator. So I applied for the job in Kitsap County, Washington. It's a county just across the Sound from Seattle. Has about 250,000 people. Can county seats in Port Orchard, and I was the county administrator there for 7 years. We had all kinds of interesting projects, a comprehensive plan that had to satisfy the very complex growth management requirements in Washington. We rebuilt or expanded the jail. If you're looking for a challenging capital project, try tripling the size of a jail without having any inmates leave while you're doing that, or escape while you're doing that. That's a really fun one. From there, I moved on because counties are a different animal. It's a challenge managing an organization where all the department directors are independently elected, and they really don't necessarily have to listen to you at all, even if you're the county administrator. And I attribute that fact to the reason why I have a very collaborative approach to management. If you can't force somebody to do something, you have to figure out ways to influence them to do things. And I've found that over the years, the best way to influence is, first of all, to listen so that you understand the other person's perspective, and then to figure out where your interests may overlap, and figure out how you can, as a win-win team, get things done together. So I don't at all regret the time I spent in counties. I think it was a great learning experience, and they're vital throughout the country. But cities and towns are better. So I'm glad to, and you'll notice a trend in my progression. Bernalillo County, we had 1,400 employees. I was the assistant county manager there. In Kitsap County, we had 1,200 employees. I was the county administrator. Went to the city of Bellingham, Washington, which has about 800 employees. I was it's a strong mayor system in Bellingham. I was the chief administrative officer. And then in Louisville, after 3 years in Bellingham, my wife decided that Washington was way too isolated from the family, and being a Colorado native and my family being in New Mexico, the opportunity in Louisville came up, and we checked it out, and it seemed like a fantastic place. So that's why the short tenure in Bellingham. Louisville, 200 employees or thereabouts. So a progression, the smaller I got, the more I liked it, and I finally felt like in Louisville I hit the sweet spot in terms of organizational size. It's the right size to get to have a room full of employees where eventually I hope to know all of your names and a little bit about you and your families, if you feel comfortable sharing that with me. And I look forward to seeing you on a regular basis and getting to know a little bit about you. And I hope you will feel comfortable with me coming in, telling me the things that I need to know to do a better job as the town administrator, so I can help support you in your work, the great work that you do. And we can together figure out how to improve all of our operations and deliver excellent service that will make Erie not just the best place to raise a family, but the best place to start and grow a business, the best place to find great food and entertainment, the best place to recreate in all kinds of different ways, to find solitude in the parks and open space, to live in the neighborhoods that are connected, well connected, whether it's walking, biking, or other forms of transportation, auto, so that we can make this the best town in all of the U.S. I know we can do that. The bones of the community here, the downtown, the old town is here, and it's a wonderful community already. Obviously, just ranked number 3 by one of those mini entities that rank cities and towns. So let's get number 1 next time it comes out, and I'm sure we can do that. Spent 10 years in Louisville. I think I learned that it's probably better to leave before people want you to go in Louisville. I don't know why they wanted me to go, but they did, 4 of them anyway. So I thought That's all it takes. That's cool. If you don't want me, I'm sure there are other opportunities out there. Took a little while to find Manitou Springs as an interim city administrator. I told them from day one I'm not interested in the full-time job because I don't want to leave this area. My wife's work is focused on Denver. All of our kids are in this area. But it was a really fun and fantastic opportunity to serve as an administrator in a short amount of time, interim administrator, and make some really important changes in that community. And then Erie came up, and I can't tell you, from day one, I was totally excited about this opportunity. So because of all of you and because of the community and the nature, the possibility to make a difference here. So my family is my wife, Susan, my stepson, Jason, my son, Maxwell, my stepdaughter, Karina, and my daughter, Ann. And two of the four are currently living with us in between jobs. Ann's the youngest. She's graduating from CSU this spring, I hope. Yeah. And she will, definitely. We all love to, well, I say we all, except Ann. She didn't really catch the ski bug like the rest of us, but I've been skiing since or about the same time I could walk. I love to ski. Growing up in Taos, it comes with the territory. So we all love to ski, except Ann. Mountain bike, hike, fly fish. Most of us are vegetarians, so the asterisk there is my wife does not think fly fishing is a good thing to do. I grew up doing it, hunting and fishing, and fly fishing is something I still really enjoy. It's a challenge to try to think you're smarter than a fish sometimes. So that's enough about me. What you can expect from me is listening. I think I'm a good listener, but if you think I'm not listening, please tell me and say, nope, you didn't get it. Here's what you need to know. I really do like it when people tell me things that they think I should know to do a better job. I encourage that. If you ever feel uncomfortable sharing in any way, do it anonymously so I get the information one way or other. But I hope you will find that even if it's something I may disagree with, I hope you'll feel comfortable sharing things with me. And so that we together can come up with a better a solution for whatever it is you're concerned about. So I'll share my ideas. I have lots of them. I encourage innovation and creativity. I think it's important to try and always be innovating. I think to create an environment in which people feel safe to do that, you got to make a few mistakes, and you got to look at those mistakes as learning opportunities, not things to be punished, but things to be explored, so that we can figure out a better way forward. Now, if I or you or anybody continues to make the same mistake over and over, then that's a training issue or an attitude issue or something else. But one or two time mistakes, that's learning, and we should be taking enough risks as we do our work to that we are going to fail sometimes. I mean, that's certainly the case in the private sector. Restaurants, about half of the restaurants that start end up failing within a year or two. So that's just one example from the private sector. One thing I will focus on is because the Board of Trustees are our board of directors, and they certainly, in our democratic system, they represent the will of the community. And we need to be all focused on what their top priorities are. And this Sunday, I'm going to be working with the Board of Trustees in helping figure out what are their top priorities. We've got a long list of about over 40 items, more than and that's above and beyond the day-to-day work that you're all doing. Specific, new items that are beyond keeping the streets plowed and the water flowing and the permits processed and the checks going out and the information systems running and everything else that you do on a day-to-day basis. They are, as they should, pushing forward to try and improve and bring even better service to this community and deal with all the issues that are coming forward. So we'll be going through a prioritization exercise to identify what are those top priorities and then make sure that we are all focused on achieving those priorities. As I told them on Tuesday night, I read a quote that I thought really resonated. It was the essence, and this was a quote I do remember now. It was Michael Porter, a Harvard Business School professor. He said, the essence of strategy is choosing what you're not going to do. There are so many things that we want to do that sometimes you got to be able to focus on the top priorities, and most frequently that means, okay, we're not going to do half a dozen or 2 dozen things so that we can focus on those things that are more important. We all do that in our lives every day, so that's what we're going to focus on with City Council. So goal setting to do that. I'm going to be continually looking at ways we can foster what I call organizational health, making this a place that even on Monday morning when you're dead tired, you still look forward to coming to work because you enjoy the people you're working with, you feel like you're making a difference in the community, you are recognized for your contributions to all those things that you do, and you have an opportunity to make things better. You feel safe talking with your supervisors and me and others and to say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Or here's a problem. I don't like the way this is working. Here's what I think we should do about it. So that you can make a difference in this organization. One of my slides somewhere, I'll get to it in a little while, says there are leaders everywhere. And I'm looking at a room full of leaders right now because you are all, every day, have opportunities to make a difference in how things work. And I do expect that from you. So before I get to my expectations for you, I'll talk about, I'm going to do site visits. I'll do, I think we've got close to a dozen different discrete operations, but I'll do site visits. I call them quarterly visits, but I end up doing 3 or 4 of them every month so that I can get around to visit with all of you on a regular basis. And I look forward to having opportunities during those site visits to hear from you, what you're working on, so that I can better understand your day-to-day challenges and satisfactions, the things you enjoy doing, the things that maybe we can figure out more productive ways to do it or more satisfying ways to do it. So, and those are always Q&A opportunities. And I'll say this right now, if you have a question, interrupt me and ask it. And if you don't feel comfortable, come up afterwards. One of the things we didn't do this time that we'll do at the next all-staff meetings is have boxes outside and at least the week before so that you can put your questions in those boxes anonymously if you want to, or sign your name. Either way, I'm good either way, so that if you don't feel comfortable standing up in a meeting and asking a question, you can ask it in a different way. And I appreciate that. Not everybody enjoys public speaking. I used to be terrified by it. You might not think that now because I'm rambling on, but I've gotten used to it over the years and more comfortable with it, but not everybody has that opportunity. So I mentioned it before, I'm a good listener. I have this inquisitive inquiry approach. You'll hear me asking lots of questions of you, and I hope you'll do the same for me. I think every good conversation starts with good listening. So that's my philosophy, and this listen, understand, act. Action is also really, really important. So next slide. That's what you can expect from me, and here's what I expect from you: to listen to others, to share your ideas, seek first to understand and then to be understood. That's one of Stephen Covey's principles that I read decades ago, and it served me well in my career, and I think it works well in all kinds of situations, both work and family. If you think there's a problem, don't just hold it in. Share that with your supervisor and the solution. If there's a problem and it's in your area, you're probably the best person to figure out how to make it better and to change it. So share your ideas and your suggestions. Be creative, innovative, take reasonable risks, and keep your life in balance. I really do want all of us to have a balance between work and life. That's the best way to come to work with your most effective brain power and energy and enthusiasm and creativity. I know when I don't get enough sleep or have been working crazy hours for too long, I get cranky and I don't do my best work. So it's important to keep a balance in things and to take those vacation days that you've earned and to have fun away from here and come back rested and refreshed. And you'll see me when I do go on vacation. I'll let people know because I think it's important. That's what we should keep things in balance. So I want you to all keep your lives in balance too. Support others, and don't do anything that you wouldn't feel really comfortable explaining on the front page of the newspaper or now social media, wherever it is. Sure, sometimes they'll misinterpret what was going on, but if you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it. That's the basic ethical rule for me. You've got to feel like you'd be comfortable standing in a room like this or in front of a judge or whatever explaining why you did what you did. That'll make things go well. Next slide. Here's something I call the pyramid of team effectiveness. I'll be working with the senior leadership team on this, and I want all of you to kind of think about this and work on it in your teams. Building trust, that's the foundation of all the work we do, is getting to know each other, getting to trust each other. That's one of the reasons why I told you a little bit about my family and feel like it's important for you to get to know me as an individual so you can trust me in some ways. And I know that it takes time to earn trust. I hope to earn your trust eventually. And when you're able to trust everybody else on your team, and I hope that happens quickly, I hope it already is happening now with your teams, then you really can engage in what various authors have said is unfiltered conflict. Conflict is not a bad thing if it's channeled in the right direction. So if you and I have a difference of opinion on things, it's probably because we have different life experiences and we come to the situation with a different set of experiences that help us see things from a different angle. And when our differences of opinion conflict, that can be a really powerful way to find a better way forward than either of us individually has thought about. And so I think it's critically important that we trust each other, that we're going to be respectful, and we're not going to do anything that's going to undermine the individual, but we engage in conflict in a way that's the pursuit of the best approach forward. So engaging in unfiltered conflict is really important. Once we do that and we figure out together that best way forward, then we got to commit to an action plan. What are we going to do about it to solve that problem? It's not enough to just say, okay, yeah, we figured that out and then walk away. We've got to commit to the action to make things actually execute and better. And that assumes that we've reached agreement on everybody's role in that process. and that we as a team and individuals in that team hold each other accountable for our individual roles in that. And that all of that effort is focused on achieving the results that we and actually the Board of Trustees for those things that they've decided are priorities, that's what we're focused on, is those results. So that's my pyramid of team effectiveness. Next slide, if you would. I do want to ensure that Erie hopefully is and remains an employer of choice. And if you'll go to the next slide, I'll kind of describe what that means. This is one where you have to, first off, it's a cultural issue. It's got to be a fun place to work. You've got to feel like you're treated fairly, and ethical treatment and ethical behavior is the norm and the expectation. And I think creative and innovative environments are, I find, fun places to work. So got to be a fun place. So that's the culture. Next is making a difference in what you do. And I feel like all of the work that every single one of you does makes a meaningful difference every day. Sometimes people don't recognize it, like the water or the sewer service, or just driving the same road every day for years, but not appreciating what went into the design standards and the maintenance of that road. Or there are all kinds of ways in which our work doesn't rise to the level of headlines, but it really makes life as we know it possible. If the water stopped running in Erie, it wouldn't be more than it would be a matter of minutes for a lot of operations. It'd be a matter of days before pretty much everything in the town would come to a screeching halt. So it's vitally important, the work that we do in many respects. Having clear mission and objectives, that's one reason why I am so excited that the Board of Trustees immediately jumped on the opportunity to have a retreat focused on identifying their highest priorities. So I think that'll really help all of us know and focus on those things. Having sufficient resources to do that work is critically important. If you're overloaded and there are too many things on your plate, that's going to be frustrating. And if you feel like that's the case, please talk with your supervisors or the directors talking to me so that we can make sure that we have sufficient resources in whether that's people or equipment or training or time to do things. Time is a resource. And again, I mentioned this earlier, recognizing everybody's contributions. That should be a daily thing. For those of us that are supervisors, seeing what others are doing and on the spot recognizing them. I appreciated what you did and why, and here's how it makes life better in Erie, or it makes my job easier, or whatever it is. So that's really important. Open communications, you've heard me say this already a number of times, creating an environment in which it's safe to say what you believe others need to hear. And leadership should be listening as much as we're talking. I'm doing all the talking, but I do hope to do some listening very soon. Conflict being productive, the productive search for truth, and mistakes being things to be explored, not punished. So, career development opportunities, these are all things that are creating a great place to work where you'll want to come in on a Monday morning, even when you're tired. Coaching and support for your career development. I've always looked at, maybe not always, but I've gotten better at looking at work. We're all at different stages in our careers and our lives, and sometimes that means career opportunities within the town of Erie. Sometimes it means opportunities elsewhere. And if your career trajectory that you envision is going to take you someplace else, I want to make this as wonderful a place for you to work while you're here and help you achieve your career objectives, because that's going to make you more productive and effective while you're here, and it's going to be a great situation for both of us. So I don't see people leaving the organization as necessarily a bad thing, as long as while they're here, they're giving their best effort, and it's part of their career trajectory. And so that's personal development plans are a part of that. Cross-training so that we can all learn the important aspects of the other jobs around us and do a good job of supporting each other. And again, as I mentioned earlier, leaders are everywhere. I'm looking at a room full of leaders, so I look forward to seeing how you exercise that opportunity. Work-life balance, again, creates value in your life and for the organization. Flexible scheduling is one way to do that. If you work really late one night, I think we should be flexible to the extent we can within the organization to use flex time to help create balance. And there may be lots of other opportunities. Working from home for certain positions where that's an opportunity. I know for a lot of you that's not, but if we can do that, I certainly am open to that. And again, I said, when I go on vacation, that's a good thing. So I'm going to let people know about that. It's not something to be hidden or anything. We do need to keep balance. And finally, and I do say finally, because even though this one grabs a lot of attention a lot of the time, and many people focus on it, compensation, the dollar compensation, is critically important. I'm not minimizing that at all. But in all the surveys I've seen HR professionals do, pay and benefits really comes in a distant third, fourth, fifth, or 12th issue when it comes to why people either feel good about their work or why they don't feel good about it. So I think we should really be paying competitive salary and benefits. We should every year, every other year, be looking at comparable cities in our labor market and making sure that we're paying at least the average of what others are doing, not the bottom, not necessarily the top, because I think there are other things we can do better to provide an environment that's good for all of you. So salary and benefits should be competitive. Pay should be merit-based so that people's annual performance evaluations are tied to the increases that you get over time. I do like a system that also has spot bonus opportunities so that part of that daily recognition or whatever the recognition is for employees that are really doing above and beyond their job description, there should be some monetary awards here and there that supervisors have the opportunity to give on an easy, non-bureaucratic basis. So all of that's the employer of choice stuff. I've been talking for, 40 minutes, way too much. Okay, so are we almost done? I can't remember my own slide. We're to the part I like better than all that talking. So do you have, please, if you have any questions of any nature on anything, what's your questions? I can wait longer than you can. No, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Do you live in Louisville?
I do live in Louisville. Yeah, and that would be a struggle for me not to live in Louisville because we have a beautiful house that looks out over the open space at the back range. And my wife would, it wouldn't work out well. That was one of the criteria that made my job search much more difficult than it would have been otherwise. We didn't want to move. And that's one reason why Erie is a good opportunity for me too. But I do hope, and you know, I've had mixed feelings on whether or not the town administrator or city manager in any community should have to live there. It was interesting in Manitou Springs, they do have a requirement that you have to live there. And one of my responsibilities was helping them recruit the next administrator. And in Manitou, even though it's right on the edge of Colorado Springs, it's a small community, and there are only probably half a dozen houses on the market at any one time. So the first person that we recruited, and the city council there selected him, he had such a difficult time finding a house in that small market that eventually it didn't work out. And that was also part of the reason the next time we went out, it was such a struggle to find people. So although I do think it's really important that the top appointed official understand and know and be subject to the same rules as everybody else, I'm going to do my best to learn everything I can about this community as if I lived here. So I'm going to make sure I go to all the restaurants, and I go to all the parks, and I ride my bike around on all the trails, and I work out in the rec center, and all of those things that I think are critical to being able to do my job well. And I'm thankful that at this point anyway, there's not a requirement that the administrator has to live here, because I might not have applied for the job if it had been. It's a might. There are still many, many other things. So really good question. And I had this discussion with the deputy city manager in Louisville when she and I were working together, and I was adamant that the city manager or town administrator should always live in the community where they work. And she said, well, Malcolm, this is 2015. I think that's when we had the discussion. She said, professional couples these days don't choose where they live based on the same criteria that happened a long time ago. Frequently it's, well, my job's 60 miles that way and your job's 60 miles that way, so this is where we're going to live. And my wife's work is focused on Denver, and mostly Denver, although now she does some things in Colorado Springs and some things in Las Vegas and some things in San Francisco. So bus service is really important to her, getting to the airport so she can get to the international or national stuff, and bus service into Denver so she can get to the capital and other work. So good question. Anybody else? Yes.
Perhaps it's a break off a piece of this question, but you saw Louisville boom. It's boomed in the last 20 years, 15 years. What do you see happen there? And Erie seems to be positioned in a similar way now. What are some things how would you approach it, knowing what you know from Louisville? How are you approaching Erie?
Yeah. That's a great question, and that's one of the many reasons I'm really excited about coming to Erie, because I see Erie as having even more potential than Louisville did when I started there 12 years ago, or 11 years ago. Old Town Erie has a similar feel of Old Town Louisville a while ago. It's got the great bones of a more grid-structured downtown. It's got some historic buildings, and it's surrounded by even more opportunity than Louisville had. Ultimately, we're looking at a build-out population of, depending on whose numbers you look at, 60 to 80,000 people. The transportation network here, I think, is better laid out than Louisville. We're closer to I-25, which creates some energy, and now the town owns 255 acres out there that the town can control the development on, which is a tremendous both opportunity and responsibility. The Old Town area surrounded by neighborhoods and certain commercial areas, either already commercial nodes or commercial centers, or places that could be commercial centers. I just feel like it can be even better than Louisville. I love Louisville. I won't be at all embarrassed about that. And I think Erie's going to be even better. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here, is because of all the opportunity here. And it's not like it's great already. I've ridden my bike around a little bit, did your mountain bike trails and some of the trails. I can actually ride my bike from my house on the Coal Creek Trail and get here to Town Hall. And I look forward to doing that sometimes. It'll take me a little bit longer to get to work, but it'll be a fun ride, though. Maybe an e-bike or something like that. But yeah, it's poised. And I had lunch with Ben yesterday, and we were looking at. Is Ben here today? Man? Okay. Oh, that's right. We were talking about all the different development opportunities around town, the things that are already in place, the things that are poised to happen. And I just got more and more excited about what's coming and what's already here. So, yeah, it's a great place. Other questions? Yes.
Whose water tastes better, Louisville?
Depends on the time of year. We both kind of struggle with taste and odor issues, as you probably know, when the reservoirs start heating up. And in that respect, I would say Erie's tastes better because you've got an activated carbon system to help manage those problems. And Louisville keeps looking at that and thinking, maybe we can manage it in a different way so we don't have to put that expensive system in. Let's see, I'm learning a little bit more about Erie's water system and know that it's coming from primarily, if not exclusively, the CBT system. Louisville has the advantage of having both Colorado Big Thompson water and the South Boulder Creek system. So they one of them's Front Range, one of them's ultimately coming from the headwaters of the Colorado. And I don't know, maybe the blending of the two has its advantages, but yeah, they both have great tasting water. Yeah. So, anybody else? This is like a bid. Okay, I see a question here. You raise your hand, then we're going to jump on it. I should have mentioned this earlier. What I've done in the past to encourage questions, and we could do this on the spot today, is I will take to lunch whoever you decide has the best question this afternoon. Lunch on me. For whoever you decide as a group, and we'll do a quick voting at the end of the meeting, who had the best questions. So far we've got water, we've got development, we've got, what was the other? All right! There is a free lunch. Okay. You know, they always say there's no free lunch. There is one, and it could be yours. So, yes.
What wins in a fight? A moose-sized grizzly bear or 100 grizzly bear-sized mooses?
Wow, okay. I got to think about that one. I heard you had a great sense of humor. True. Yeah. Could you repeat the question? What has?
No, that's cheating.
Okay. A moose-sized grizzly or 100 grizzly-sized mooses. A moose-sized grizzly
It's a really easy.
or 100 grizzly-sized mooses. Maybe I missed the question, but it seems like 100 grizzly-sized mooses would have.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Man, I'm glad I can think on my feet. Well, judging by at least the number of laughs, that so far that was the best question. All right, but the others are good too. Okay, what was the first question? I want to make sure everybody remembers. Where do I live? Okay, yep, Louisville. And we had water quality, and we had development-related activity, and what I see for the future in Erie. And then grizzly-sized mooses and moose-sized grizzlies. Okay, I'm sure there are other really good questions in the audience, and I'd love to have lunch with one of you. Okay.
So I don't know that this is really a question, but I've lived here 20 years, so it was 1,200 people living here, and I live at the airport, so right on Road 7 and County Line.
Uh-huh.
And I watched the development of Road 7, and for me, there's nothing interesting going in over there. It's like, how many Sonics, Burger King, I mean, you know, car washes, and so I look, oh my God, dentists. So many dentists. It's like, how do we maintain something that's different than every other strip mall, every other major highway? It's made me really sad specifically to watch Route 7, because it doesn't say anything about Erie, it doesn't say who we are. For me, it doesn't have any destination.
Yeah.
So I just worry about just the overall development of like, oh, we got another fast food restaurant, put that in there. And I realize it is money driven to some extent, but I would love to see some sort of plan or do something more unusual and interesting.
I agree completely. And yeah. It's actually, this is related to your question about Louisville and what I see for Erie. One of the unique things about downtown Louisville is that at least up until the last couple of years, and I think maybe still, every single restaurant in town was owned by somebody who lives in town. It's not a corporate franchise or something like that. Not in town, but at least along Main Street. And that ownership pattern makes those owners more vested in each of their facilities, more likely to volunteer for things, for the various events, and it makes each of their establishments unique. Interestingly, one of them, wow, I'm drawing a blank. I can see Zuka, and it's purple. I'm sure you've been there. Huckleberries, of course. So huckleberries, the Huckleberry, Zuka, and in Boulder, the Dushanbe Tea House, Leaf, used to be Aji, but Aji closed down, and the Chautauqua restaurant are all owned by Lenny Martinelli and the Three Leaf Farms. As you probably know, they're all unique, they're different, and that shows the entrepreneurial spirit of a person and a group of people to be able to create different environments, all the same ownership, but they're all completely different restaurants. And that ownership model and connection to the community and I don't know, just their approach, we've got to figure out ways to encourage that in our development model. And although I will also say, yeah, Sonic Burger, you know what you're going to get when you go there every single time. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get at other restaurants. Sometimes it might be really great, and sometimes it might be kind of disappointing. And that's the value of the franchises. If somebody's traveling across the country, they know what they're going to get at Sonic Burger or Wendy's or whatever it is, Perkins or stuff like that. So there's a place for those, there is definitely a place for the uniqueness, and that's what we have to work as a planning department and economic development staff, is figuring out how do we help grow those kind of unique establishments here in Old Town Erie and in the various places where that makes sense around town, to create that more unique sense of place. Because that, I think, over time is what is going to attract more people. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be more profitable. I think the people in this area will be more likely to frequent local establishments when that's the case. And I think we can do various things to encourage that through economic incentive packages and through business support, through working closely with the Chamber of Commerce to help make sure that people who have that entrepreneurial spirit also have the business skills and the acumen to actually make those things successful. So it's not any one thing that's going to do it. Again, it's kind of like all of you are making this a great city, and together we can figure out how to support the businesses that will make this throughout the community a unique place and a wonderful place to continue living. So, great question. I like that one. But, although that moose one was pretty. Great questions. Any others? And we got 3 more minutes. Somebody else has an opportunity to earn a free lunch. Yes. Luke.
No, I know this is probably down the priority list, that at least staff has seen, but from a staff perspective, Erie's been operating as a statutory town. From a management perspective, how does switching to a home rule, is that any effect on staff, and then how does it affect operations? If it does?
Yeah. I think primarily the differences I would see are that it would enable us, as the name implies, to have more home rule and control over how we approach certain things. Maybe and some of this will affect Jessica to a certain degree, how we advertise things or don't have to do it in a certain very specific way under a statutory approach. Trying to think of, there's some great handouts that I've read recently because I knew this was an interest of the Board of Trustees on all the various pros and cons of home rule. Sales tax collection is probably the biggest one for most Colorado municipalities, where instead of relying on the state to collect sales tax and being subject to them never really doing any auditing, if you have a home rule community, you do your own sales tax collection and have the ability to audit organizations to make sure that they're paying the right amount and that it's a level playing field for all of them. The downside of that is they perceive the local government as being the bad guy when there are audits, and it's found out that they haven't been paying what they need. So you have to do that with a very sensitive customer service spirit. And make sure that the auditing function is characterized in a way of we're leveling the playing field. It's not fair for one business to not be paying their sales tax where the others are, and they're all competing in that same environment. So that's one area that home rule has an advantage and can, depending on the level of sales tax, retail sales tax activity, it can be a significant financial benefit to the home rule community versus the statutory community. I know there are other ways, but off the top of my head, I can't remember all of those. I need to go back and read more about it, but that's the biggest one. And But there are a number of other areas where it's an important thing. And I do think it's something we should pursue. I know the board, at least some members of the Board of Trustees are really interested in that. But it does come with some risks, because it's not like the Board of Trustees can dictate the form of the charter that comes forward. Very quickly, what happens under a home rule, when a community wants to go home rule, they pass an ordinance or resolution making that happen. A board of I'm used to calling them freeholders, because that's what they did in Washington, but it's a board of commissioners, yeah, thank you, who actually work on drafting the home rule charter, and they can put in it whatever they want, as long as it's not in conflict with state law. And they can put some really good things in it, and they can put some things that aren't so good in it, which may or may not survive the vote of the people. So the Charter Commission puts together a proposed charter, and then it goes to the electorate to vote on. And so there's some risks that, I mean, they could do something that says we have to publish every single line of any proposed ordinance in 10 different newspapers in the community, and it could be an expensive thing, a burdensome thing. Maybe their interest is in transparency, but the technicalities and logistics might make it prohibitively expensive. So there are little things like that. But I think you can avoid that with a good home rule process. And I do look forward to working with the Board of Trustees in exploring that and seeing if the time is ripe, and pursuing it if the board thinks that's a good course of action. Yes. All right.
So what if the bear and the moose team up? No. What is a book that you like, a movie that you like, and a musical artist that you like?
A book, a movie, and a musical artist. A book, one I just read, is called Merdomo. It's by Stanley Crawford, and it's about the acequia system in northern New Mexico. Acequias are the Spanish term for the irrigation ditches that we all know around here. And a good friend of mine gave me that book, and it brought back wonderful memories for me, because growing up in Taos, one of my earliest memories, actually growing up in Peñasco when I was really young, it's a small village outside of Taos. One of my earliest memories was plunking the headgate board down in the irrigation headgate near our house, and then running, literally running, and lying on my belly in the grass in our yard and listening for the water to come snaking through the leaves before it poured out onto the lawn. It's fond childhood memories. So that was one of my favorite recent books. Movies. Oh, let's see. There's so many. My wife and I love watching movies, and it seems like whenever anybody asks me, so have you seen any good movies? It's like immediately that I can't remember any of them. So let me reach back. Some of my favorites over time. Actually, for a long time, my favorite movie was a foreign film from Russia called Dürsu Usala. It was about this 1880s surveying party who was being led by a native of Siberia. And just the cinematography was beautiful, and the story was poignant, and I don't even know if I know it's not on Netflix, but, well, maybe it would be. Dürsu Usala, if you have it. I should watch it again, because I might, after I saw it like 30 years ago, and it still resonates for me. But sometimes when you see things again, I once took my parents to a film that I thought was horrendously funny. It was a Robin Williams film. And if you've ever taken your parents to something that you thought was funny, and then when you're sitting there between them watching the film, and you think, oh, man, I didn't realize there was that much profanity in this one. That was a bad one. And musical, This may surprise some people, but for the last 5 years, my son has taken me for Father's Day to Bass Nectar concerts. And if you're not familiar with Bass Nectar, you should know that you don't go to a Bass Nectar concert without ear protection. Because not only can it really destroy your ears, but you'll feel it in your whole body. And it's a great, I can't say he's my favorite musician, but the experience of going to a Bass Nectar concert at Red Rocks and having the whole multimedia presentation and the music so loud that you can literally feel it through your body, that's pretty cool. So and my son, we actually have gone 5 years in a row, and I finally bought a T-shirt. And so Maxwell said, "Dad, you're a confirmed bass head now." All right, I think we all better get back to more work. So thank you so much for coming in today. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. This is a great place. And please do tell me what I need to know to do my job better.
We vote the moose. We vote the moose.
I'm sorry?
We're voting for the moose.
The moose. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. Good point. That's what I need to know right now. Is Malcolm, you said you were going to take somebody to lunch. So, okay, quick vote. We've got movies, music, and books. We've got moose. We've got uniqueness. We've got Erie's development potential. We've got water taste. And why can't I remember where I live? Okay, I should know where I live. Give me a shout out for the moose. Pretty good. Give me a shout out for uniqueness in development. That was pretty close. Oh, we might have to have a show of hands on that one, or a roll call vote. Development potential. I was spirited. Water quality. And where I live. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'm thinking water quality is the winner. Am I wrong? Okay. That's good. Thank you all.